most vicious assault on working families in the past 100 years was launched just over 30 years ago. It crept in slowly like a cancer, but before they knew it, workers had been kicked out of their jobs, many with no final paycheck or retirement benefits. And this, for many, was after having worked at the same plant for up to 35 years.
I was greeted by 8 cop cruisers telling me I have 2 minutes to get in a building and get my stuff and get out. No paycheck, no job.
And we're almost at retirement age. We're so close.
Our politicians had changed the rules. They had brought in a free trade agreement called NAFTA, an agreement they had prepared and signed in secret, and that would have dreadful effects on hundreds of thousands of Canadian workers without telling the workers how they'd be affected by this agreement. This is how it all started.
December 17, 1992. A special day for the Prime Minister and his cabinet.
I am sure that Canadians will recognize that the North American Free Trade Agreement is a good agreement for Canada and a good deal for Canadians.
The North American Free Trade Agreement. Few Canadians knew that much about it when it was made law 20 years ago, except that free trade was guaranteed to create jobs. Good jobs. That was the word of the politician.
Free trade agreements made it legal for companies to break their collective agreements, shut down their plants overnight, and move to states or countries where labor was cheaper. And many of these corporations had already received generous financial benefits from Canadian taxpayers. For example, Caterpillar, with assets of over $82 billion back in 2011, told its workers to take a 50% pay cut or they'd move their London automotive plant to Indiana, which they eventually did.
I think they're nuts. I really do. How can you take 50% of somebody's income away? And any workplace, I've never seen it.
We both lost our jobs, and we have 5 children, and we still need to feed them. We still need to pay our mortgage. We still need to pay our bills. And knowing that neither one of us has a paycheck coming in any longer is quite frightening.
Even as manufacturing plants were being padlocked overnight, killing thousands of jobs, politicians kept lying, saying that free trade agreements created good jobs.
These are encouraging signs for every Canadian, and I only wish that sometimes our little protesters, after they've gotten their 5 minutes on national TV, would stay and listen to hear the facts, because perhaps having heard the facts, we haven't lost him. Here he is. Here he is. Because if you listen to the facts, you would be the first one cheering the free trade agreement with the United States and Mexico.
But even if you're not among those who lost their jobs, the free trade rules are still going to affect you. And that's something else our politicians still refuse to come clean about. And it all has to do with Chapter 11 of NAFTA. Chapter 11 gives corporations the right to make profits at any cost, even at the cost of breaking environmental laws we've put in place to protect our air, our water, and the food we eat. In fact, should any of our environmental laws prevent corporations from making profits, then corporations are legally permitted to sue Canada, not in an open court, but in a special secret court that represents only corporations. And the results of these hearings are also secret. Today, Canada is the most sued country under NAFTA. For example, when the province of Quebec brought in no fracking laws, mining giant Lone Pine Resources launched a $250 million lawsuit against Canada on the grounds that the Quebec law prevented the company from making profits. And that's NAFTA. Nothing but an open declaration of war on working families, on our environmental laws, and on our human rights, which is why these agreements continue to be negotiated in secret. But you're not going to find anything out about this in the Canadian media, because it's all corporate owned. Even Peter Mansbridge of the CBC has never questioned the Prime Minister about the real effects of these agreements on working families in any of the interviews he's done with him over the years. Maybe you're saying to yourselves, well, what can we do about this? Well, we know this much. Our politicians have had 30 years to bring a sense of decency and fairness to these free trade agreements, yet Canada is more committed to them today than ever before. Nothing has changed. All we have is our voice, and we mustn't be afraid to raise it.